Values. Values are our deepest desires, and whether we're aware of them or not, they're the things that we value the most. They represent who we really are and not who we think we should be. So if you take the time to figure out what you truly value, like not what you think you value, but what you actually value, it can act as a sort of compass to guide you through life and guide you through decisions. Like, should I have a bagel for breakfast or a fruit salad? Well, that depends on whether you care about health or deliciousness, and kind of help you form bigger life decisions. Like, should I study to be a nurse or spend a year in Ghana? You know, what do I care about? What's at the top of my value tree at this moment? And that can help you make the little decisions and the big ones. So how to work out what your values are. There's so many books and sites and videos on this topic, but what I've done recently is started with the long list. So asking questions like, who do I want to be? What do I care about in my relationships? What do I like to do? And what do I care about at work? And using those things to pick out the words from those long value lists that you can Google to see which ones resonated for me. And here's some I prepared earlier. And then from these lists, if you can narrow it down to a set of 5 or less, but let's start with 5, it then gives you a sort of subset based on what you care about above the other things. You can still care about 50 things, but what are the 5 things that are like the top priorities or the top values? So this is how I honed my list down using Miro, the software. And so I narrowed it down to this short list of 5. So for me, what that looks like is authenticity. I care about being caring, about learning and sharing, which are kind of 2 sides of the same coin, I guess. And movement, or you know, body movement and energy. That's the short list I'm currently vibing on, and I have stuck it above my desk so I can see it and refer to it regularly. It's no use doing values work and then tucking it away. And they can change over time. So you can start here and start with the long list, get it down to a short list, stick it somewhere, but just don't etch it in stone. Have it as something that you can add to or remove from or refine or adjust as time goes on or as life changes. So once you've figured out what these things are, you've got your 5, congratulations. The next thing that is helpful is to figure out how you can live in line with these values. Because some of the time when we're getting really frustrated, like we might feel like something's not quite right, or we don't want to do something that we're being asked to do, or there's sometimes this little conflict and we don't actually realize it's because we're spending our time in a way that's not in line with what we actually value. And sometimes we don't have a choice, and sometimes you know, there's things we have to do because we value being able to afford our groceries, and so we want to work or what have you. But when you do have ownership over those decisions and over your time for the parts that you can control, then that's where these can come in handy. So value alignment. How you spend your time is how you live by your values. And the best keeper of our time or manager of our time is often our calendar. So whether this is a handwritten diary or a calendar on the wall or a Google Calendar, which is my weapon of choice, you can use it to make sure that the things you care about are being reflected in how you're spending your time and how you're planning to spend your time. So here's a little preview of my real actual calendar, my personal calendar. And I have made some changes while I was preparing for this video, because I thought actually I'm not really practicing what I preach. So the stretch, move and eat block every morning, that's something that I've been trying to do for a while now, just making sure that I get some movement in before I sit at my desk for the day. And I thought if I actually start to schedule that in, it reminds me if work shifts earlier, or if someone requests my time in that part of the morning, or if I go to bed too late, I'm kind of eating into that time that I otherwise try to honor for myself. But then tomorrow, for example, I have a plan to commute to the office, and so I'll have to use that time for that purpose instead. Very meta. Here is my blog post and video block, and then I've got a few other sort of social and recharge things booked in for this week. And then future weeks, you can kind of see anything in purple is social or self-care or just the personal things that I really want to champion. The scary part, like a horror movie, is if you bring in the work calendar and start to see the black blocks denoting different meetings or focus blocks that I've booked in my work calendar. So if I do ever want to see, it only has free busy because of our permissions, but if I do ever want to see, like, what does my work day look like? Maybe I'm not going to work out after 8 till 5:30 in meetings and different focus blocks. So sometimes turning that on and off can help me kind of figure out what I'll have the energy and the space to do. Equally, when I get my period is in there so that I can figure out, is that a good day to have a backyard courtyard reveal party? I organised that before I knew those things were going to align, but here we are. And so having this color coding between work and the personal priorities is helpful in being able to understand, like, well, is there a balance? And what happens if I do work later on any of these days? Like, what am I taking that time away from? If I work past 5 on a Friday, maybe I won't get to have that workout, or maybe I won't get to have that glass of wine if I change my mind at the last minute. So that's calendar value alignment. The questions to ask yourself when looking at this is, what's getting more time than it should, and what's not getting enough? So that might be, you know, I'm spending so much time working out that I'm not getting enough social time. You can also think about whether you're living by other people's priorities or your own. Are you spending the time based on what you think you should be doing or what you actually want to be doing? And if you had a magic wand looking at your calendar, what would you change? Would you, you know, within the limits of feasibility and within the realm of what's possible and realistic, are there some changes you can make that you do have the ability or control over? And in summary, I guess my like cheat sheet to value work is, first, know them. If you don't know them, if you haven't got this sort of quick list on the top of your head, figure out what they are. Stick them somewhere so you can refer to them regularly. Put them in prominent view on your fridge, on your wall, somewhere that you can kind of make them a part of your life, and reflect on them. Change them if they don't feel right or as things change over time, and plan your time to match. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm finding it quite helpful, but I've only really just landed on these, and I may change mine too, so I'll keep you posted if that happens, and if I come across any other resources that might be handy. If this was helpful, and if you may be interested in my continued value alignment journey and how it might be helpful to you, feel free to hit that subscribe button or leave a comment. Maybe you do something differently or you figured yours out in a different way. I'd love to know about it. I'm an absolute sucker for this stuff. I feel like understanding yourself, knowing yourself a little more deeply can really help find your flow and figure out why things don't feel right or what's working when they do. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Bye.